Welcome to the Leo Training Podcast with Joe DeLeo. You'll hear in-depth interviews and tips from world-class athletes, coaches, and industry-leading experts to help you train smarter and improve at what you love to do. Train smarter, get stronger, move better, race faster. Here's your host, Joe DeLeo.
We're back with episode 63 of the Leo Training Podcast. And this week's guest is personal trainer and strength coach Levi Markwardt from Spirit Lake, Iowa. The two main components of this interview that I cover with Levi are his story and personal journey of redemption back to health and fitness, utilizing primarily bodyweight and kettlebell training. And the second focuses on his work with youth athletes at the high school level. One final note before we roll to the interview is that I had to splice together two separate audio files because we had a break in the interview due to some technical difficulties. So just a heads up in terms of the continuity of the conversation as we approach the end of the episode. So without further ado, let's roll to this interview with Levi Markwardt. Levi Markwardt, welcome to the Leo Training Podcast. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to come on to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be a great chat. We've had this one in the works for actually towards the end of 2016, but had some life speed bumps and stuff. So we got past all the potholes and everything.
Right.
So now we're back on track and the trains are rolling. So yeah. So without going into all that stuff, so let's turn the mic over to you and let people introduce yourself to the audience. Let them know where you are and kind of what you focus on, and we'll get into some of the topics.
Cool. My name is Levi Markwardt. I am a kettlebell instructor, and I'm based out of Spirit Lake, Iowa. Spirit Lake is in the northwest corner of Iowa, and Iowa, for those that aren't familiar, maybe it's kind of right in the middle of the United States in the northern part. And it's a small area, small market farming community, some factories, and then we're in a kind of a vacation hotspot, so to speak. We have some recreational lakes, and we draw quite a bit of people around from Omaha, Minneapolis, Des Moines area during the summers when the weather's nice. But I've got a 24-hour gym, and I work as a strength coach at the local high school.
Excellent. Now, is the facility that's yours?
Yes. Yeah. I've gone from owning to managing to kind of back and forth with everything like that. And right now I'm the only one here. I do have a part-time trainer that fills in when I'm at the school. But otherwise it's just me, and that can be good or bad depending on who walks in the door.
Awesome. Very cool. So before we get into working with the high school athletic population, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your own athletic career, kind of your roots in sports, and what you focused on as you went through high school and college.
Okay. I started off, I live about 8 miles from where I work, and so I kind of came back home, so to speak, and after college. But being from a small town, I played about every sport. Every season I was playing a sport. Football in the fall, wrestling in the winter, baseball in the spring and summer, and staying busy like that. And I ended up wrestling at Northwestern College in Orange City, fairly close to where I grow up and where I live. But it's a NAIA school, and I wrestled there for 4 years. Had a little bit of success towards the end of my career, and believe it or not, some people that follow me, I wrestled heavyweight. I was about 265 when I competed, and got quite a bit heavier afterwards, and then kind of got my crap together after that. So after graduating, but I graduated in 2000, and I kind of fell backwards into training. I went to school originally to be a PE teacher in high school, and just kind of had some personal things happen, and decided that I didn't want to be in the high school setting right away, and kind of fell backwards into the training aspect, and went and got my NSCA after college, and then slowly added the other certs, Dragon Door and Strength Matters and stuff like that with the groups. So.
Excellent, man. That's fantastic. Very cool. So how long have you been training athletes and working with people? How many years now?
So I started, it would have been October of 2000. So coming up on almost 17 years, 16 and a half years.
Awesome. That's very cool. Now, have you stayed pretty much right in the area that you've grown up in Iowa?
Yeah, but my business, I live in Milford. Not that that matters, but my business is in Spirit Lake, and the school I work for is in Spirit Lake. But yeah, my business has always been in Spirit Lake, and it kind of draws people. I've had a pretty good draw of young athletes, anywhere from 6th to 12th grade. The furthest kids would come from 90 miles one way, 3 times a week. Just there's not a lot around the area.
Right.
But I tell myself because I'm really good, but it's just because there's not a lot around the area. But then I have probably 30 to 45 mile radius that I get consistently draw from. And then when I started working at the school here this last year, I haven't done as much training with kids from other schools just because I've been focused on the change in my job. So. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Transitions, any change takes some time to, to get reacclimated or acclimated to new responsibilities and roles and stuff. So you focus primarily with high school athletes. Is it all are you working with all types of sports at the high school, or is it a particular sport that you tend to gravitate towards?
Well, wrestling would be my favorite. I think that's kind of what I offer the most to. Just from not only passion, because that's what I just really love wrestling growing up. The sport gave me so much, and I just connect with. I think I connect with wrestlers. But yeah, I work with all sports, and I've actually learned to really appreciate the female athlete, and just I've had a lot of success working with women that really buy into the system that I'm trying to promote. And since working at the school, I've got a handful of females that are just killing it. And I've shared a few of their videos on my Instagram, and I couldn't be more proud of the changes they've been making. And I had a young lady tell me today that if the school hadn't brought me in, that this is her first time really committing to the weight room, and if they hadn't brought me in and I hadn't brought in the changes that I brought, that this would be just another year where she wasn't participating. So it made me feel pretty good that at least one person is really, really enjoying it. So that makes the tough days a little bit easier. So
yeah, absolutely. It's very rewarding to hear that type of feedback. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can't really put a price on that stuff.
No, you cannot. Yeah, it definitely makes all the long days worth it for sure. So you mentioned you try to get, I guess the athletes or the students that you're working with to buy into your system. So that's a good question. What is your system? And I guess more importantly, what are some of the things that you try to teach or the principles behind that system?
For me personally, I'm a huge fan of strength endurance. And again, I think that comes back to my wrestling background. Just being able to go at an intense level for 6 minutes high school, 7 minutes college. And so I really think that just being able to fill up, that gas tank, so to speak, is something that has really been fascinating to me. I also really like it because it's hard, and a lot of people don't want to do it. And so that's kind of why I think I really enjoy that aspect of it, that mental challenge. And a lot of times we don't break physically, we break mentally, and really getting kids to try to go to a place they don't necessarily want to go to. But in order to get there, you got to have the foundation set, and so right now what I'm doing at the school is really getting kids to try to buy into full range of motion, some correctives or exercises that fall into the broad scope of correctives, crawling and things like that. And it's usually, sometimes the looks I get from an accomplished athlete that wants me to have them crawl, it's just something that, that I would have done the same thing, growing up as the male ego kind of gets in the way. And, but the kids that are, allowing me to break down what they've done in the past are really responding. And I think it's starting the word of mouth is starting to spread a little bit, and we're getting some good turnouts, in the weight room, both before and after school. And so I guess my philosophy right now is learning to move better, learning to move correctly, or what I would, determine as correct, and then slowly, incorporating. We're doing that at first with body weight and kettlebell movements. And then, we're incorporating the barbell once I feel like the kids are able to, show me that they're capable. I think the kettlebell does a good job of leading into the barbell. And, I primarily almost exclusively train with kettlebells. And, I just never had a love affair with the bar, and the kettlebells speak my language. And so I would love to have everybody do it, but, there's nothing wrong with the bar. And so we absolutely, use it and use it to the best that we can. So.
Very cool. Yeah, I've seen some of your your posts on Instagram and stuff, and some of the weight you're putting up with the kettlebells. It's impressive. I also saw I think it was the one arm push-ups you were doing on the neuro grips the other day. that was pretty wild. That was pretty wild.
Yeah. It's the fun thing about that, somebody commented on one of my posts, and they said, "I bet you don't practice those kind of things." And the cool thing about what I feel that the carryover with the kettlebell is no, I don't practice a lot of that stuff. It's just one of those things where I see something online, or I have a wild idea, like I wonder if I can do this, and there's some trial and error, of course, and you got to figure out the logistics of everything. There's more than a few fails, where your hand gets smashed. You're talking about narrow grips on kettlebells. There's quite a few accidents, bruises and some bloody knuckles and things like that. But it's fun and it's challenging, and you get to kind of find out a little bit about yourself. But yeah, no, that stuff's more trial and error, and then I get into the training after that. But that's kind of just some fun, keeping it fun.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that aspect, because you can tell there's sort of a exploration and kind of a play component to it.
Yeah, play is a good word for that. It's I have fun doing it. I don't mind failing. It's kind of fun to see if I can figure out how to do it. You make a few bad attempts at something, and you're like, well, how can I improve? And to me, that's it's not frustrating. I mean, it might be frustrating while I'm doing it, but the reward at the end is a lot of fun. And so it's kind of, the kids enjoy it too. They like to try that kind of stuff when we get back to the gym. I do a lot of that stuff at my gym, and then try to incorporate that stuff with the kids that are able. At the high school, they like to try to play around with it too. So it's a lot of fun. I'm getting old enough now where I'm actually old enough to be all their dads, and so they're trying to keep me young, and I'm trying to grow them up. So
there you go.
Yeah,
that's right. We all meet somewhere in the middle.
Right.
So a couple additional questions in some of the responses you just shared. So in your progression, you talk about going from body weight to kettlebell to barbell. What are some standards that you have, for body weight before they start using the kettlebell, and then kettlebell standards before they start using the barbell?
So for body weight stuff, we'll use a suspension trainer. I don't know the brand. It'd be similar to what a TRX is. And we'll do a lot of range of motion work with our hips, as far as squatting goes, and maybe some supported lunges. I'm getting a lot of younger kids, middle school and sixth grader middle school, and some inexperienced females, and just their first time. Well, they might be playing sports, but they haven't had a lot of time with structured exercise, and so just looking at range of motion, how their hips are moving, how they can keep their spine neutral when they're squatting, and then we'll progress to some hinging, using all the standard stuff that you would see at a strong first cert or a Dragon Door, RKC, Strength Matters, keeping spine neutral, or flexing your hips and driving your hips back, as opposed to, squatting when you're intentionally trying to hinge. And so when we get the kids to keep their back straight, their shoulders back, just slowly incorporating that kind of stuff with the swing and getting them to understand how, the similarities between sports and hinging is key. Because, so many kids, when we actually get to the deadlift with the bar, that it's very similar with a bell, but it's different, same but different. And trying to get them to understand, that the range of motion in the bar path and where they're keeping their shins and how they're keeping their back. And, a lot of times the guys we have to rein back in is keeping the weight, the load they're using, scalable to where they are in their experience and things like that. It's just learning, I'm learning with them right along. Each person has different cues and different limits. That's probably the big thing too, is just learning how each one moves. Changing, sometimes we're doing a conventional deadlift and sometimes we're doing a sumo deadlift. And sometimes I don't want my kid using a bar at all. And we'll go from using 2 kettlebells in a farmer carry position, as opposed to using any kind of a bar. And trying to get them to understand that weight is weight and they're getting stronger if their form's better and they're safe and we're going to prevent injury and not create injury for the sake of more weight and just kind of getting kids to see the bigger picture, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 things. One is, so once they've established, ideal range of motion and control when moving body weight wise, is there like a specific, like, do you have, certain amount of push-ups, for the boys and girls that they got to do, or body weight squats, that type of thing before, or is it just kind of, you can tell, with the coach's eye that they're in a good spot to kind of transition to the next tool using the kettlebell?
Sure. Typically I'll just go right to a kettlebell. I think that center load in the front, in a goblet position, does a really good job. Now we might spend a lot more time doing goblet squats than we do like a single bell front squat or a rack squat, just because of how the weight is centered. But, I found that most kids, bells are wide enough in their loading. You can start with an 8 kilogram, or we might even just use a suspension trainer with one hand in a kettlebell and then the front squat position in the other, and just learn to get a little bit of loading that way and train each side. But yeah, it's mostly if I see they've got the range of motion and they can keep their spine straight. A lot of times, I found with younger kids especially that there may be a fear that they can't get down all the way or they can't get back up, and so we'll use the suspension trainer to show they can use a little bit of support with their upper body with their hands as they pull. But we'll talk about keeping their shoulders back and big chest and standing, driving through their heels and gripping the floor with their toes and making sure that everything's staying in line as they're moving up and down. And usually they're able, once they feel themselves get down that deep and they can feel themselves come out of it just fine, it just takes, there's kind of an aha moment for a lot of them. And it's not that they're bad athletes, it's just that they haven't, spent the time doing it. And especially with that younger group.
Yeah. So that kind of was leading into my next question. Do you, given the amount of time that they are, sitting down, in school all day, out of curiosity, how much time do you have to kind of spend with them just kind of trying to, restore some of that range of motion and get them back to a place where they're moving, cleanly?
Yeah, that's another good question. There's a lot of kids, and that's the hard part, I think, is because there gets to be so many. And with the high school kids' schedule and different stimuluses and pulling them all away, I might see a kid twice 1 week, and then I won't see him again for 3 weeks, and then we're kind of constantly starting over. It can be a little frustrating just with trying to get the training to be the priority that I feel it needs to be. They've got so many different, whether it's band and choir and so many different extracurricular activities. When they're young, they don't have a lot of times access to a vehicle, and so they're on their parents' schedule, and that might not always be. And so I'm kind of just hopping around and doing what I can. So some kids, the kids that I won't see as consistently as I would like, we might be doing the same stuff over and over and over for weeks and weeks and weeks just because I'm always starting over with them. And I feel bad for them because they get frustrated, they get bored, and they don't see that they're making any progress. But anybody with any kind of experience knows that you're not going to make progress unless you can make that consistent commitment to improving. It's tough. And so,
yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more in depth because, I'm sure that you and I aren't the only coaches on the planet that deal with that exact, I guess, personality trait, if you will, that people have in terms of having to spend a lot of time doing the fundamentals and establishing a really good, strong foundation before they progress. And, the things that you kind of hit on there, it's effective, but it's boring. It's not always fun, especially at the beginning when you're kind of just going very slowly and you're really not doing, lots of volume because you might be working on, flexibility or mobility restrictions, those types of things, and then just working on cleaning up movement patterns. So how do you, as a coach, how do you communicate to those athletes, and try to, build reassurance and confidence that they're doing the right thing and there is value in this? Because especially today in the ADD world of social media that we live in, everybody wants it, yesterday. It's not even today anymore. It's like, it's got to happen, 10 hours in the past.
That is probably, the $1 million question, and if I had an answer to that, I would probably, I'd never be slow again, as far as business goes. But, I think it starts at home with our parents, parenting. I've got a 14-year-old, 8th grader, and, it's the same. I got to do a good job as a dad to so she understands that this is the long haul. We're training for life. We're not training for just 3 month season, and that this thing kind of stuff takes time. And you're right. The way that our world works anymore with access to the entire world in your hand, in a matter of seconds, it is. And in the fact, kids that want the size of a bodybuilder, at the age of 15, 16, and we don't do enough curls, coach, and all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those things where, I repeat myself all the time. You gotta be patient. You gotta be here. It's not a light switch. You've gotta commit that time. You've gotta. And then one of the frustrating things that I have is when the kids do come, and they commit to that for that first week or whatever, and then they get sore. Then I won't see them again because they're sore, and then I'll see them 3-4 weeks later. So we're starting over again, and then of course they get sore, and so then I won't see them again because they're sore, and just trying to get them to, when we don't eat right, when we don't sleep enough, when we don't drink enough water. And then we try to exercise on top of that. It's always Isaac's fault. It couldn't possibly be that I'm on Twitter at 2 a.m. or it couldn't possibly be that I'm, slamming Mountain Dew while I'm playing Grand Theft Auto all weekend long. Things like that. That has nothing to do with my poor recovery. But it's that constant. It's just like I guess I'm that constant presence where I'm just constantly staying on them and just trying to encourage. A lot of times there's a lot of sarcasm, there's a lot of frustration in my voice as well. We're trying to, cause I guarantee you I would have been the same way. I mean, I didn't even train. So a lot of these kids are doing far more than I did when I was in high school. So I'm trying to be, give as much grace as I can, because, at least they're in there, for the most part. But yeah, that's probably the number one struggle is just getting kids to be consistent. And those kids that play multiple sports, they're playing 4 sports a year. They're always in season, and trying to get them to come in and work out in the mornings when they have practice and games in the evenings. It's asking a lot, but it's to me, it's if you're going to play a sport and you're going to put your body through that, you got to do what you can to perform at the highest level possible, and spending time in the weight room. And it doesn't have to be super intense, but you want to keep your range of motion. You want to be able to recover from your games. You want to be able to give your best each and every night. And in my opinion, training has to be a part of that equation for the big picture. So the awesome thing is at the school right now, I've got so many young kids coming in, 6th through 9th grade, that they're very impressionable. They're seeing some success, and I think we can stay positive. We're going to see those kids have some big time turnover and some rewards coming their way here in the next 3 years if we can stick to it. So it's encouraging, it's exciting, but it's also it's very frustrating. Just because the internet's awesome and it's absolutely horrible at the same time.
Right.
What we have access to is phenomenal, but we also have the ability to just constantly comparing ourselves to other people. So and so can do this much or this or that, and how come I can't do that? Or they're doing this and you're having me do this, and so it can be a huge hurdle as well to overcome and try to so and so's philosophy is different than your philosophy, and they're bigger than you are, and they're faster than you, or they jump higher than you, and you don't know anything. And so there's a whole huge roll up and down, up and down, up and down. But it's very rewarding. I sound like I'm complaining. I actually love it. I love being there, and the kids are by and large great. So I don't want to sound like I'm whining, which I probably do, but I should throw that out there that it is a very rewarding job, and I do it too.
No, that wasn't the vibe I was getting at all. I mean, my reaction was it's we're living in a time where this generation, the high school generation, so to speak, this is kind of all they know, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
For you and I who are old enough to appreciate what it was like before the smartphone and the boom of the internet, all those things, like we've seen the world and appreciated the world for what it was before that. So we probably have some inherent more patience just because we lived in a world before all of this
Sure.
high speed in your face technology was available at your fingertips. And because this is all they know, that's their constant expectation.
Right.
So it's interesting to have conversations with people of that age, and they're like, it was like that, like when you were a kid, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, how did you survive?
Right.
Yeah, the sun sets and it rises the next day. It's okay. Like, we all made it.
Yep.
But to your point, that is a major challenge. I've kind of spoken on this topic with a few other guests, and that's something they've really never had to deal with before. Is kind of the barrage of social media and having that at your fingertips and the access to information, and punching it into Google if you have a question about an injury or training, and really no way of knowing for sure if that's good information. They're younger, they're highly impressionable. They don't know if that's a good source they're getting that from. So that seems to be more and more of a challenge, for us in our roles these
Right.
days.
Yeah, no, it's how quick they can get answers to their questions, and whether or not, and it's pretty easy to find the answer you're looking for. And sometimes what we're looking for isn't always what we need,
Yeah.
And so it's pretty easy to scroll through a few links that pop up and find something that agrees with what your theory is, and so it just it does make things challenging. It's getting kids to. It's amazing what's true on the internet and what isn't in real life.
That's right.
But I'm sure every trainer goes through it. That's any coach at some point in time, whether it's a sport or whether it's weight training or personal training or whatever. I'm sure everybody's got the same issues. But
No, for sure. I think we all deal with it on some sort of some level. So kind of shifting gears, I'm personally curious, now how many years have you been specifically working with the kettlebell?
So I have a 24-hour health club,
Yeah.
and I have a member that he bought 220s and 224s, and he had them at his office at work, and he bought a Mike Mahler DVD with it, and he was going to just work out in his office over his lunch hour, and a lot of times we know how that goes. They sat there collecting dust, and he thought, Levi, I like your gym. I'm not using these. Can I trade you some membership time for these 4 kettlebells? And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. So I took them, and they sat in my gym and collected dust because I didn't know what to do with them. And this would probably been about 2012. I had a friend by the name of Joshua Bourbon. He's in chiropractic school right now, but he went with an athlete trainer, and he was visiting the gym once. He's from the area. He was visiting my gym. He was home, and he saw the kettlebells, and he knew I didn't know what I was doing with them. He saw him sitting there, and he says, I'm an RKC, right? And I said, yeah, I don't know what that is. Sorry. He goes, well, do you want me to show you how to use those? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so we set up a time the next time he was home, and so this would have been like, I think he showed me in July of 2012, and it blew my mind. It completely, what a 20-kilo bell could do to me was unbelievable. And at the time, I was in good shape at the time. It wasn't like I was coming into this untrained, and I can remember doing 2-hand swings with a 24 and thinking there's no need for me to ever pick up a bigger kettlebell because it was just tearing me up. I couldn't safely do a get up with a 20. It's just one of those things that it was just like, it was unbelievable to me. And so I started practice. I didn't do a lot after that because I was.
So not to interrupt you, but just for point of reference, right? So this is like 2012, you said. So couldn't safely do a get up with a 20, and then I know I've seen you. I think you've been doing some get ups with what, 56 or 60?
My best with a barbell is 201 pounds. And my best with a kettlebell is 68. And so I just really struggle with how it sits on my arm. It's very uncomfortable to have that amount of weight sitting on my forearm. I'm close to an 80 with the kettlebell. I've been able to bench press it and then do a get down. I'm working on getting back up with it, but I gotta be a little bit more efficient with my movements just because of the time under tension. With just how it sits on my arm, but yeah, no, I couldn't safely do one with a 20 when I started, and my daughter is 14 in 8th grade, and she can do one with a 20 right now, so it kind of puts one in perspective for me. But and I was frustrated. I mean, I was like in awe of how awesome kettlebells were that first experience, but I knew without him there. I wasn't going to be very safe with them. And so I use them for 2-hand swings and practice get-ups with dumbbells, because I could go lighter, until, for probably very off and on for that year. And, I decided then in 2015, that I was going to go ahead and get certified through Dragon Door. They were in Iowa City, which is about a 4-hour drive from me. And that was the closest anywhere was going to be for any considerable amount of time. And so I probably signed up 8 months prior to that or 6 months prior to that. And I really started committing to using the bells. And so I got my RKC in April of 2015. And then I went and took my strength matters in February of 2016. So just had my year with them. And so I really haven't been with the bells too long. But like I said, it was just, and I love the strength endurance part of it. I'm not a big, overhead presser. You see a lot of pretty awesome videos on Instagram of people pressing double 48s or, 60 for reps, things like that. And I'm in awe of that stuff because, that's not, I love the endurance part of it. The high rep snatching, Kenneth J's Viking Warrior conditioning is like, I love that stuff. So that's kind of what I do.
So I wanted to talk more about, this is a great segue. I want to talk more about strength endurance. So, does that falls right back into your wrestling roots, the kind of the love and passion for strength endurance?
I think so. When I started off, I get a lot of crap for this, but I started off being and I still am, I am a huge fan of burpees. Back in 2006, when my dad passed away, I was almost 300 pounds. And I had come across some of Ross Enamite stuff at Ross Training. I'm not sure if you're aware of him, but he is a boxing trainer, and he has a bunch of books out. And I fell in love with his coaching style and his training style. And I started with the burpee, and it brought me back to like junior high football. And I remembered how much I hated them, but something that was absolutely miserable, I turned into something that I was become pretty efficient at. And, I went from almost 300 pounds, and I usually walk around at about 215 to 217 most days. And I've kept it off since, for the last 10 years. The burpee was the huge foundation to that strength endurance mindset. So before the kettlebells, it was burpees and pull-ups and sledgehammer swings and tire flips and things like that. And I just really kind of went after that mindset of just, how much work can I do? And it just evolved with the kettlebells. The kettlebells allowed me to be creative. It allowed me to train in ways that the barbell won't allow me to. And it's just been something that I've been able to, I've been able to take the strength endurance to new and creative ways for me to keep that fire burning. And it's just been something that I look forward to. It's crazy to think that, being almost 300 pounds to not being able to jog down the street I want to snatch this bell for 30 minutes, as many, 15 on, 15 off for 30 minutes. That's something I look forward to. So it's just kind of weird how that all changes. But.
Yes, that is a bit fascinating, I will say. But okay, how did you build up to that? And two, how do you program, for strength endurance? Like, do you prioritize certain lifts, or is it more about, doing a certain number of reps and you're doing it for, 20, 30 minutes type of thing?
I started off doing on the minute work with, 2 hand swings, and I progressed from there. When I started to get interested in what Strength Mattered offers, talking with Mark Ripken at the time, really encouraged the single arm swing. So before I went, when he was writing Strength Matters curriculum, and then the Strength Matters swing test is a 10-minute swing test, and my body, for my body weight is 32 kilos. It's 10 and 15 seconds, rest 15 seconds, 10 and 15 seconds your other arm, rest 15 seconds for 10 minutes, and so you're going to get 200 swings in. And the first time I did it with a 32, the same body weight, I barely made it. I couldn't believe how difficult it was for me with a 32 to get through that. And I was on the larger end of there's people that were 175 pounds, I believe, that had to use a 32. And that's kind of when single arm swings really kind of made sense to me. That if somebody that was that much lighter than me could do that amount of work, then I needed to work that much harder. And so the single arm swing really became a foundation. And I've used that format, that 15 on, 15 off. The first time I saw it was I already referenced Kenneth J's Viking Warrior conditioning, but I was using 20 and 24 bell snatching with that. And so the swing was a little bit different, of course, and able to get heavier. And so I actually was able to work up to do my test at my cert with a 48. But it was using that, I was doing a lot of 20-minute sets, 15 on, 15 off, 10 reps at a time, starting with, a 28, building that volume and working my way up to eventually doing with a 48. But it's for me, it's one of those things where if I see someone outworking me, then that's kind of the motivation, where I get that motivation. That's that wrestling, it comes back to that wrestling. That's what was awesome about wrestling, is that I couldn't blame anybody else. When I got beat, it's because somebody outworked me or somebody was better than me. And you can either take that as a fact, or you can not let it sit well, and you can do what you can to become better. So I just kind of transferred that to, that mindset to the training aspect. And there's nothing that drives me nuts more when someone that's lighter than me outworking me. And that's by no means to say that lighter people can't work hard, but I don't like to be embarrassed. And not that they're like intentionally, but I mean, this is how my mind works.
Yeah,
so
you're competitive.
Right, almost to a fault. But it's just with me, it's just one of those things where I got to work harder. And so that's what drives me, I guess. And so yeah, there's a lot of when it comes to swings and snatches, it's basically that on 15, off 15, on 15, off 15. And I'll go with different weights. So like, for example, if I'm snatching, I'll snatch a 32 for 7. Maybe I'll do 2 minutes of 7 snatches, 15 seconds, rest 15 seconds. And then maybe I'll drop down to a 24 and I'll do 8 and 8. And then I'll just go back and forth. Sometimes it'll just be 1 bell. Just kind of depends on if I'm trying to build my volume up and get more time, or if I'm going to try to build more strength, and just try to keep time under tension. But as far as just being hinging that whole time, and things like that. I'm always kind of tweaking my form. My hands have come a long way. I've got a pretty scary picture online that with my hand just completely shredded. I'm trying to toughen up the skin on my hands. We're learning how that grip and how the bell moves in my hands, and versus a 24 versus a 36. How my grip changes and heavier and stuff. So it's this constant tweaking. It's just never being satisfied, and just enjoying this part of my life right now. So
that's outstanding. Excellent, man. How we doing on time?
I got about 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. So in that case, you go with moving in the rapid fire?
Sure.
All right. Cool. Okay. So, Levi, given all your knowledge and your experiences throughout life up to this point, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give yourself 15 years ago?
Oh, just to appreciate life and your health, because it's so much harder to start over. If you don't fall into that mindset of easy and simple and it's convenience and make health your priority at first, because that transformation period of being unhealthy to becoming fit and healthy again is, while it's very rewarding, but so many people can't do it. And so if you can even prevent that from happening, when you look at the overweight and obesity statistics in our country right now, don't even let yourself get to that point. Take care of yourself, and that's honestly my major goal at the school is getting kids to appreciate fitness for training for life, not just for your sport, but for falling in love with exercise and being able to do it for your lifetime, and doing it for you and doing it for your family, as opposed to turning it into a job because your doctor says you have to.
Excellent advice there. Excellent advice. If you have to pick one, what's your favorite strength training exercise?
I think the get up is probably my favorite. It goes from being my worst and embarrassing to probably my favorite. I do really like the bench press as well. I think there's a little bit more skill involved with that as opposed to a get up. But get up number one and bench press number two. It's kind of funny. Those are two, quote unquote strength grind max attempt exercises. But and I like to do the snatching and the swinging so much. But if I had to do one thing, it would probably be get up.
Awesome. How has your training changed today compared to 15 years ago?
Oh, just the creativity with the kettlebell is really, kept everything fun and new. 15 years ago, I was busy, chasing Twinkies with a Coke. That was my training. How many Twinkies can I eat per time? But yeah, so back in college, when we were training, it was bicep curls and bench press and trying to look good in your singlet, as opposed to training as an athlete, and then moving on to training for life. But I went from the classic, when I was exercising, I went from the classic bodybuilding, chest one day, bis and tris one day, shoulders one day, legs one day, to now I'm really just trying to focus on range of motion and mobility and movement and my heart rate, things like that.
Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely big change from college for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever had an injury, and if so, how did that change your training?
I've been very blessed. I have had some disc herniation in my neck, wrestling in college, and I've had a fracture in my low back wrestling in college. But since I've gotten older and gotten back into shape, nothing serious. Some minor shoulder type stuff, where I have to really work on range of motion and scaling back, everything, but nothing. I still get some flare ups in my neck, trap, elevator scap area, that I blame on my wrestling career. But it's not near as bad as it was. I've been very fortunate. No major knee injuries, no neck spine surgery, anything like that, where a lot of guys have to go through. I've had about the worst is a lot of cortisone shots. That's pretty minor.
What is one thing that high school athletes should do more of to complement their training and their health?
Be aware of what they're eating. It's just, we're so hurried going from practice to.
So Levi, what is your best tip to improve recovery post-training session?
I think one thing that most people lack is, at least from my observation anyway, is that when the workout's over, we leave, as opposed to, stretching and letting your heart rate recover, depending on, what kind of session you just completed, but making sure that, we do the little things, and then making sure that you're eating the right kinds of foods. Like we had talked about, I deal a lot with high school kids, and a lot of times it's eating based on, eating on the run and eating, whatever's convenient. And so I think if you combine the slowing down, not just walking out of the weight room or walking out of the gym, do some cool down, stretches and foam rolling and just making sure you've got the range of motion you're addressing, and then, staying hydrated and getting that good food in, as opposed to just whatever's easy, whatever's fast. I think those are two things. And again, that's basically working with my type of age group, that 14 to 18 year old who I spend the most time with. It's just one of those things where, we don't always connect the little things to the bigger picture. And I think that's what I would recommend, or what, based on my experiences.
Well, one thought I had was, do you find it particularly challenging to, with that age group, to get them to eat well or understand the importance of, a balanced diet in terms of, fruits, vegetables, carbohydrate, protein, those types of things?
Yes, very much so. At that age group, you've got all kinds of issues. You've got the overweight athlete, you've got athlete that needs to gain weight. You've got, the person, I mean, well, it's just like anybody else in the population, I guess. But I mean, I guess I just see it, you're at a very emotional time in your life and things are affecting you. There's whether you're fighting with your parents or your boyfriend, girlfriend, or you had a bad competition the night before or whatever. There's just so many things, so many distracting things that the kids are dealing with anymore, and with social media and how fast things are tweeted, and how easy it is to become distracted, how easy it is to become frustrated, or a loss turns into a huge loss, in a competition really quick if the right people are on social media and things like that. So, I think some of the last things these kids are thinking about is taking care of the things that I can take care of. It's really easy to worry about what somebody else is saying. And for whatever reason, then it distracts us from doing the things we need to be doing, like making sure our nutrition is right, like making sure that we're getting enough sleep, like making sure that we're getting hydrated, not with, soda or Starbucks or whatever, favorite coffee, Tivana drink there is. It's actual, drinking good, clean water, and just making sure that those little things, as we learn, as we get older and understand, are such a big, play such a big role in our lives. And that is a huge, because it seems so simple. We always think about, problems having this major, we have to do this major surgery to fix this problem. And a lot of times it's, no, you take care of a bunch of little things and, everything seems to go a lot easier. And at that age, it seems like at that age, junior high, high school, everything is a major problem.
Right.
And you just have to really kind of focus on, it's funny how we mature and looking back. And I know that I was the same way. The stuff the stuff that I would long to have as a problem right now, or, is something that would never happen because it would be never considered a problem. So,
right.
Taking care of the little things, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny the how perspective really shifts as you get older, and,
oh yeah.
Like when you're a kid, your biggest problems might be, just the little things like scrounging together money to get the latest, video game or toy. It's not really a problem. It's not,
right,
like you said.
Right.
But that's a tough, that's a tough time period too, because of, high school is just a tough environment to be in. Kids can be really, brutal at times, and you're going through a lot of physiological changes, puberty and hormones and stuff. And,
right.
And, then you have the colleges on the horizon. So it's like all these different external factors that a lot of them are outside of your control. It can be a very tough, confusing time.
Yeah. And I get a lot of kids too that are talented athletes, and they've got, college goals, whether it's a smaller school or whether it's big time Division I. And we get so caught up in being fast paced and hitting every camp that we can, and getting as much exposure as possible. And when we're traveling like that, it's impossible to stay focused on your training, because you're everywhere, and it's impossible I shouldn't say impossible. It's very difficult to focus on your training. It's very difficult to focus on your nutrition if you're flying everywhere and driving everywhere and eating on the run. And I think my mother-in-law is the only person that plans a picnic wherever she goes and brings real food with her. And everybody else, it seems, just eats whatever they can at the gas station or at the quick rest drive-through, wherever you can get. And you eat when you can, and as long as you eat calories. And so it's just one of those things where we just get so busy so fast, and try to get as much exposure as we can at that age, and sometimes we sacrifice the things that we shouldn't be sacrificing.
No, totally. I remember, recall when I was assistant coaching earlier this end of the fall of 2016 for high school tennis team, and the snacks or foods that that they would have available to them, or even the parents would bring, instead of getting fruits or vegetables, apples, bananas, oranges, those types of things, a lot of it would be like pretty much junk food, chips or, like cake. And I'm just like, this is not what they need to be eating pre or post.
Pre or post or ever. Right?
Yeah. And they're kids. They need to enjoy their childhood and have, birthday cake and stuff like that. And like, I'm not denying that, those types of experience, but when you just bring like a couple panfuls of like cupcakes, that's just, they're not going to have one. That's for sure.
Right. I can't have just one either. So
yeah, exactly.
No, but it does seem that we have in America, we have an excuse to eat or to celebrate with food every weekend. It seems like there's something, somebody's brother's having a birthday, or it's a new holiday. We're celebrating with this. So
where the game's on.
Potluck. Yeah, the game's on. Yeah, I mean every weekend we can make an excuse to overeat and indulge every weekend. So it just comes back to being responsible, planning ahead, and that same scenario you just described with your tennis players. I see if I go, like for example, it's basketball season just winding up here in Iowa, and I'd imagine everywhere in high school, and so if you go to the girls always play first in Iowa, and then the boys play the varsity, and you'll be sitting there watching the boys play, and you'll see the girls come out after they shower, they all go get something to eat, and I don't blame them. I'm sure they're hungry, but what are you buying from the concession stand? You're buying pizza, you're buying candy bars, or Mountain Dew, and it's all that stuff, and then we wonder why our energy levels aren't sustainable, or we can't recover, or just things like that.
Yeah.
But that's the typical diet of the American high school student and junior high student, and it's something that I think until we take a serious look at it and address it and become, it starts at home, but it comes back to personal responsibility at that age. They're all old enough to make better decisions, and so it's just something we'll continue to fight.
Absolutely. So it brings me to my next question, and that is, what is your favorite meal? If you had to pick one thing, right? Or it's like your last meal, what would you want? Or what would you have?
So this is something that I just have to go against everything I just said then. If this is my last meal, it would absolutely be barbecue pork ribs with a giant chocolate chip frosted cookie.
Nice.
That would be what my go-to would be.
Awesome.
Now, how often I eat that is extremely, extremely few times in a year, but that would be my favorite. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Those are the special occasions. It's good to have that stuff every once in a while. You gotta live.
Right.
Life's too
you
short.
do have to live. You do have to live.
Yeah. What is one book everyone should read?
One book everyone should read. And that's book on training or just book in general?
Any genre. It can be from any person or any field. Okay.
Well, this may sound like a cop out, but I'm a little partial to the scriptures, and so I think that my faith is an important part of my life, and so the Bible is an important part of my life. But I think any form of personal reflection, something that gets you to think about how you can improve your own existence and be a better example of I don't want to call it self-help, but I mean, in my opinion, the scriptures are filled with examples on how we can live our life, be more efficient, better, things like that. So that might be an easy answer or a cop out, but I think that would be my first go-to. But then anything after that, I enjoy obviously the training. I think one book that I had already mentioned earlier, one book that really kind of has really kind of shaped everything that I've done from would have been Never Gymless by Ross Enamite, excuse me. And I really think that probably had more from a training aspect, exercise, nutrition, all that stuff. That probably had more impact on me than any other book that I've read. And that may have been just because of the time I was at in my life, the situation I put myself in, or maybe it was because of of the content as well, but it's something that I still refer to on a regular basis and still try to apply the principles that I've learned from that book.
It's great. That's so important to have something like that you can refer back to, and you can continue to get more and more out of it. And sometimes you can reread the same things, and they take on new meanings.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's great. Who have you studied, or do you continue to study in your career to improve and get better?
One guy that I've heard speak a couple different times, that when it comes to using a barbell, that I've really come to appreciate and just been wowed by every time. That's Cal Dietz from strength coach, the Olympic strength coach at the University of Minnesota. Minneapolis is just about 3.5 hours from me, so that's kind of a person that I've seen at different conferences, and every time he's given a presentation, I just been overly excited to hear him speak and to hear what he's got to say, and that's really helped me with my programming with the barbell. And then just I think somebody else that I really look up to would be Mark Ripken. And, been able to get to know him and work with him a little bit, and some of the things that he's always telling me something that I just need to pause and just kind of reflect on it and see how that applies to my life. And so I don't know Cal on a personal level other than saying hello and introducing myself. But Coach Ripken is somebody that I feel that I've gotten to get to know, and I feel that he's really had an impact on what I do as a coach. And I don't really consider myself as an athlete, but I like to train like one. So.
Nice, yeah. I had Mark on a few weeks back, and that was a really good interview, really good episode.
Yeah, it was.
He's got a ton of experience and knowledge to share and stuff, and he's certainly spent a lot of time in a lot of different disciplines.
Yes.
So he is pretty unique perspective in that regard in terms of being able to offer advice that's applicable to many different athletes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, very good, man. That takes us through the rapid fire. Is there anything else that you want to add?
I just want to say thank you again, just to have me on here, and as we kind of talked a little bit, off air or whatever, and just that the opportunities that like this, they don't come a lot for me, and just to be able to kind of share. I don't ever know if I'm interesting or if I'm boring or whatever, and so just to be able to talk with someone like you, a leader in the industry, and for you to give me this opportunity to kind of get my name out a little bit, and I'm just forever grateful. And I just wanted to say, thank you, and you're doing a good thing here, and I've enjoyed other guests that you've had, and just to get other people out there, just to kind of spread the good to the training industry, because there's so much fluff out there, and there's so much, it's hard, I think, for a lot of the general population. I know it is for my kids to cut through what is good and what is nonsense, and there's so much information out there that in my opinion is nonsense. So it's good that people like you are trying to bring other guests. I'm not referring to myself, but to bring guests here to get the information out that needs to be shared, not just the stuff that is work out for three 20-minute sessions and lose 100 pounds type stuff that you see everywhere. So.
Well, first off, thank you, and you're quite welcome. I'm happy to have you on. I'm glad we got to do it. It's been a really great conversation, and you've absolutely had a ton to offer the audience and stuff. It's just up to them to listen and implement it.
Right. It's always the hard part.
Yeah, but I really appreciate that. I'm trying to put out what I feel is useful and valuable content, whether it's on the strength front or the endurance front, and it has scientific principles, and it helps people get results. And that's kind of what it's about. And if people can walk away from these interviews and pick up, even if it's just one thing and implement that in their life and they get better, that's huge. Yeah. So yeah, man, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Well, it was a joy on my end. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So just hang on the line. Let me give you a proper goodbye and
okay.
We'll wrap this one up.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Leo Training Podcast. If you enjoyed the content, I would greatly appreciate it if you would drop a 5-star review in iTunes or share this on your favorite social media networks such as Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. It really helps the show to grow and reach new audiences. And be sure to tune in next week when I sit down and interview Dr. Volker Nolte, author and editor of Rowing Faster.
Thanks for listening to the Leo Training Podcast. Subscribe and get even more expert training tips at www.leotraining.io.